Hey, everybody, welcome to the show again today. Today's topic is pauses, push-ups, plants, reigniting Gen X women's mojo with Rachel Bentz. And normally at this time, I would take the chance to tell you a little bit about Rachel, and she's sitting over here, she's watching, she's listening in. But today, what I want to share with you is an amazing post that I read that she shared on LinkedIn. And it goes something like this. Remember who you are. When I was suddenly single, I forgot. I forgot I was strong. I forgot I was capable. I forgot that I was fun. For a while, I was just lost, staring at a future I hadn't planned for, making decisions I never wanted to make, and was wondering who the hell I was. And then little by little, I started to remember. I remember how much I love adventure. I remember that I'm the kind of woman who lifts heavy weights, jumps into icy lakes with her crazy family on January 1st, and belly laughs until she cries. I remember that I am amazing. The best part, I didn't just find my old self, I built an even better version, stronger, freer, happier. So if you're in that messy middle, feeling lost, overwhelmed, and unsure of who you are anymore, know this: you matter, you are worthy, you are amazing. You didn't lose yourself. You are still in there. You are ready to shine. It's with excitement and fun and energy that I welcome Rachel Bentz to the show. Wowza. This is everything that you need to know about her. At this point, the audience needs to know who you are. I'm sure they're curious as heck. So, Rachel, welcome to the show and tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, oh my goodness, that is such a lovely, lovely. Whew, I just have to breathe. Just thank you for sharing that. And honestly, I do have to say those words. Not, I mean, certainly they're mine, but they come from the universe because I truly believe that the universe wants the best for us, and I just get to be the messenger. So have had my life experience. Yes, I've gone through divorce. I've gone through that, and I don't even want to say messy middle, but that absolute depth of the beginning of after a relationship. And I say beginning of after, because I do believe that um, even though it doesn't feel like that at the moment, divorce is a beginning. I know society says divorce is the end, but in retrospect, I know when you're right there, it doesn't feel like it, but I do believe divorce is a beginning. And if we take a moment and listen to the universe and trust ourselves, that beginning can be the beginning of something amazing. So,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And when I read those words, they could have been my words because I had those same experiences. I walked through that same path, and both of us have built tribes. We've built communities of people that have drawn to us because of those experiences and our willingness to put it out there and tell people, I went through this. If you went through this and you need some support, come see me. And we're not alone. There's so many women out there who have been there, are in the midst of it, or I'm sorry to say, some of you might be experiencing this in the future, and you'll be prepared for it because of tapping into resources like Rachel and I, and the things that we've done. When I think about what you've done with the Gen Xers, what inspired you to, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, being Gen Xers. Why did
Yeah.
you pick Gen Xers? Like, how is that? How are you connecting to your tribe and your community of Gen Xers? What does that look
Yeah.
like for you?
It's so funny. One, if you're a Gen Xer, you just know that that's why you picked the Gen Xers, right? So some of that is if you know, you know. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. I was having a conversation with a little more of a multi-generational group that I'm in, and I said I was, I was working on helping Gen Xers, and one woman, and she's a bit younger, asked, "Do Gen Xers know who they are?" And I said, absolutely. If you're a Gen Xer, you know who you are. So again, if you know, you know. But
Yeah.
one of the things is it's easy to grow your tribe around what you know. And what I knew 4 years ago was that I was just out of a relationship and feeling gut punched, right? And thinking, I am 48 years old, almost 49, and I'm single. I suppose now it's kind of a joke. I'm a childless cat lady, right? I mean, so we're in vogue now. We weren't in vogue 4 years ago, right? So what? Like that was never my plan. was never my plan. It was my plan to be with this person, to grow and to do all these amazing things. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what happened? And not only what happened, I've posted about this a couple times before, and this is true. I honestly looked at myself one looked at myself in the mirror one day and said, "Who are you? Like, who is this?" Like I lost myself in that relationship. I lost myself in what's happening in life. And I think I was just going one of the reasons why I'm not with that person anymore, but I was just going on autopilot and not making decisions. I was just settling. And that day I woke up and I thought, I don't want to settle anymore. I don't want to settle anymore. I'm still super sad. I'm still don't even recognize who you are. And I just made that decision to say, okay, what is it? How can I start? How can I start moving forward? Because when you are, and again, this isn't really answering your question. Answering your question in a really roundabout way, but you feel overwhelmed. Like, what do I do first? When you're in that like pit, right? Like, Lisa, what do you do first? I didn't even know. And so the first thing I did was I thought I just need to move my body. I can't sit here on the couch anymore. I can't, I ran out of Kleenex, right? I should have bought stock in Kleenex before that because I could have made a lot of money. And just moving my body. And honestly, that sparked then a whole bunch of other changes. But going to the gym, maybe for 15 minutes. It wasn't even a long time, but just moving my body helped to spark that. And so I really have this passion because I know how hard it is to help other Gen X women figure out how to start. Because that can be the hardest thing. And you feel so alone.
Yeah. For me, it was getting outside. It wasn't just moving my body. It was kayaking and golfing. I was golfing every Sunday. I was kayaking every Saturday. I was going for hikes every day, after work or as often as I can. So I guess it is moving my body, but I'm not
Yeah.
really a gym person. I need to be outside. Like I can't even be in a room without the window open. I love to sleep in a tent. I still go camping. People think at your age, you're but I do. That's for me, it's being in nature because it's so grounding. I'm such a head person and I'm a Virgo, which is an earth sign. So getting into the earth and being on the earth and walking in the earth, all of those things help me to get that grounded space and get out of my head. Because I think when we're in our head thinking about what did I do wrong and how did and we don't know, life has unexpected adventures for us. And so sometimes it's not about wrong. It's just there's a new place, there's a new direction for us. And we take it so personally, like we screwed up somehow. And it's not always a screw up. It's just that was a chapter, that was a phase in my life. And unfortunately, it came to an end. But this is where I am, and I can't live stuck in that rut. I love that you say that you help women rediscover their mojo, their confidence, their strength, and joy after divorce because we are so in our head. And I speak from me, I'm not going to say all women go through this,
Right.
but you and I have shared this, and we were so in our head, sitting on the couch, crying and having all these emotions. And it's like, no, get out and move it out of the body. Go have fun. So, what are some of the misconceptions that you found people were going through when rebuilding life after divorce? And how do you address those in your work?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and this maybe isn't even just for women going through divorce, but when I think society says you need to put yourself first. They talk about the analogy of when you're on an airplane, put the mask on first, do all these things first. And I found that that is too big of a leap because I found that the women that I work with, how do they put themselves first? They're not even on the list of all the things that they have to do today. They're not even on the list. So how do they prioritize themselves first? So that is a big thing for me is one, just getting yourself on the list. And what that means is we need to start small. Because again, I think society, you can Google, you can do whatever. Here are all the 5,000 things that you need to do in order to reclaim your mojo. And I'm not saying all those things aren't correct. What I'm saying is that we need to start small and we need to just start and get out of our heads and get back into our hearts. So, some of the things, and not everybody starts with movement. I think movement is a great place to start. And I love that you said just finding something that you love to do. So there isn't a prescription. I did like going to the gym. So that kind of was my thing. You liked getting outside. Other people might want to dance. Other people might want to do something, but moving our bodies gets us started. But the other big piece for me was that certainly it's nutrition. I mean, it's all of the things. So there's no magic pixie dust that just is like, here's your mojo. Ah. But the other thing that was really important to me was both movement, but then the opposite of movement was meditation. So both like getting out of my head and getting into my heart and letting the universe kind of help with that as well. But I think for me, it's the biggest thing is starting small. The biggest thing is starting small, getting yourself on the list so that you can start to prioritize to put yourself first. So
to church. Yeah, because it was that stillness, sitting by myself, and I'd sit up front and I didn't see anybody else. I made sure that there was nobody in my peripheral vision. I could just see, being just the front of the church and see the pastor up there. And, that it was those quiet moments of prayer. And then I was actually in 2 Bible study groups because there was just this peace that came over me when you were sitting there and talking and having these conversations with other women, that was able to calm my nervous system down, because we don't realize how overexcited, fear and anxiety, trepidation, all of those emotions are stuck in our body when we go through something as traumatic as a divorce. And so we're not just talking about women of divorce. It could be somebody who became a widow, you were divorced, or, having some sort of a trauma in your life. Even women who have lost a child, you lose your identity because you are a mom to that child. And so all of those things that can cause trauma in the body, move the body to move the trauma, to be able to figure out a way to cope with it, and then hopefully move through it, past it, and get to the other side of it.
yeah.
We don't ever forget trauma in our life, but we learn to live with trauma. And so whatever that trauma is for people, there's ways to move your body and get out of your head so that you can start to cope with some of those things. And I know
Yeah.
that yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead. No,
No,
yeah,
no, I was
add
going to
on
say
to
I
that.
totally agree with that, and I think that
Yeah.
and it's super interesting. It's one of the things that I forget that I just know, and that not everybody knows, because not everybody knows how trauma and how that affects your body and how your cortisol is increased. And so increased cortisol, you hang on to more weight, you don't feel good, you don't look good. But just making sure that we are both moving our bodies and taking that time to breathe will really, I mean, that is a physical thing that lowers our cortisol and just makes everything a little easier.
So move and meditate, or move and pray, move,
Yeah.
be fast
Right.
and slow. That's why it's pauses. You lead with pauses. We need to
Yeah.
have that space and time, but then we got to move the body, do the push-ups, get out there. It's, one thing that came to mind when you said dance. I had these friends, Becky and Brian, and they were in Minnesota and they moved to Texas where you're living now.
Ah, yeah.
And they would go dancing, and I met them at one of my 3 jobs that I was doing, just to figure out how to make ends meet initially. And they invited me to go dancing with them. They had a whole big group of people that would go dancing to live music, and it was an 80s cover band, and I'm totally an 80s girl. And I was going dancing 1 or 2 times a week to live music, and I would get there, I'd get on the dance floor, and I would never leave. So for 2 or 3 hours I was just dancing. People would come out and dance with me. I'd dance by myself. I got to know the people, the other regular followers of this band that they would go around and follow. And I totally forgot about that until you just said dancing. I didn't realize that was a really big way for me to just shake it off. Like Taylor Swift says, just shake it off, was to get moving in a really physical way, which dancing does. So
Oh my
thanks for
goodness,
that.
I just have 1,000 goosebumps all over my body. That is absolutely. I read this book, The Joy of Movement by Kelly. I'm going to say her last name wrong. McGonigal. But
Okay.
one of the chapters is devoted to dance. And she talks about in all cultures that every culture has some form of dance. And there's something, she says it in a scientific way. I'm just going to say magical, but there's something
Yeah.
magical about moving to music that is so one, ingratiating in new cultures. So we've talked about travel a little bit, so that when you go to a new culture, that dance is something that all cultures share. So yes, so you're getting both the physical piece of it, but you're also getting the spiritual piece of that and a community piece to that, because you're sharing that. Although I have to admit, after my meditations in the morning, I do a little solo dance party. So I like me and my cat, although maybe sometimes he's a judger more than a participant. But so I do a little solo dance party every morning just to get ready in the morning. But the community aspect of dance is, there's something undeniable. And she says it much more. So if you want to read about it, The Joy of Movement, it's an excellent book. But talking about like that can be healing. So clearly what you were doing was a healing part of your journey.
Really was. And didn't know
I
how
mean,
much I
Bon Jovi,
needed. So
and who can like deny a little Bon Jovi? So
yeah, there you go. And my solo dance now is actually in the kitchen with vegetables, which leads me to
oh,
my next question. It's pauses, push-ups, and plants. And
correct.
so part of your program, you're talking about plants. I'm a herbalist and big into the plant world. Been part of a couple of community gardens. And so when I saw the title, I was like, okay, I can't get on with the push-ups, but the pauses and plants work for me. So I'm glad that push-up is really just to signify we move our
Yes.
body. It doesn't have to be push-ups. It'd be great if it was, but move your body, and dance works. Pauses, dancing, and plants works for me. But
Sure.
how does plants fit into this recovery and growth process that you have kind of custom designed for women?
Yeah, it's so, to be 100% transparent, I am 100% plant-based. So plants was an easy space. But in my program, you do not have to be vegan. You do not have to be vegetarian. That you get to eat how you want to eat. Plants is a little bit more of a universal name for nutrition, or how do we nourish our bodies. Although I would say I do push, eating greens quite a bit in the program, and however you choose to eat. Most diets will say, eating enough greens is definitely part of the, unless you're a carnivore, and that's that carnivore diet, and that's a little bit off topic anyway. But so I think it's really important to ensure that you're just putting, and I call them high vibe foods, in your body. So lots of living things, so lots of plants, lots of greens, lots of fruits, of like all of those grains, all of those good things. Now, if you want to include meat, totally fine. But how do we pick things that are really whole food, plant based, or at least whole food, right? So we need to make sure that we are, we're given this amazing body from the universe. And so we need to make sure that we are nourishing that body. It makes us feel better anyway. If you think about eating a bag of Cheetos or eating, a salad, you just feel better afterwards when you eat the salad, because you're giving your body what it needs. So talk a lot about making choices that not are boring, they're not boring, but that really, like, how does food affect your body? And food really impacts your body. So, we talk a little bit about supplements, a little bit about herbs. That's not my forte. We talk a little bit about that, but one of the other things, and sorry, I know you wanted to say something, but some of the other things that I do in the program is bring in other experts. So maybe at some point you can come in and talk a little bit more about all of that with us too. So
Too. The reason I even asked about that is because I found initially for me it was potato chips and salt, and I wasn't a soda drinker, but I went back to drinking soda. There's all these things that I thought were comfort foods when you're in the midst of it. Those were like almost being bad to myself, was finding a way to give me comfort. But the reality is, for somebody who's 7 years past, or maybe it's longer than that, maybe it's 9 years past for me now, the comfort foods were actually the foods that I could grow and pick myself. The comfort foods were actually me finding a local farmer and picking 20 or 30 pounds of strawberries and 20 or 30 pounds of blueberries, and processing them and putting them in the freezer, and then having them and having some fresh stuff there to eat. That's actually what was the nurturing part when I got back into nutrition and feeding my body, like the good stuff. Now it's kind of almost repulsive to think about buying a bag of something, a bag of chemical laden, processed, no real food in the bag stuff, because that isn't nourishing. That isn't comforting to me anymore. But there was this space where that's what I thought I needed, was the junk food. And it wasn't until it was like I was feeling crappy and gained 30 pounds, and it was like, okay, we got to stop this train and moving because it's going off a cliff and this is not good. So,
Right.
when you're bringing plants in, do you actually kind of teach people how to incorporate those things in their diet, not just say, hey, go eat healthier? Like, let's
Yes.
let's dive into like the mechanics of that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. And the first thing I would say is that I always tell people it's not your fault. It's not your fault because our brains work, we are craving dopamine. So it makes sense that you're craving the carbs. It makes sense that you're craving chocolate. And again, chocolate is still part of the plan. Don't get me wrong. But it makes sense that you're craving some of those things. And the food companies are super smart. They know the exact ratio of salt, sugar, and fat to put in to the food. I'm going to say food like this because you and I believe that that's not actually food, but they know what that is to trigger that dopamine hit in your brain. So one of the things is I always tell women, give yourself some grace. It's not your fault. It's not your fault because that you're just biologically you are going to be attracted to some of those things right now. It's fine. We just need to find other ways to get that dopamine hit other than potato chips. And we can, and it takes time and we start slow and we start small. So what is it? And I first talk about how do we add things to our plate rather than take things away? Because again, I do believe our brains are more about yes. And when we say no, we just want the things we've just said no to. So if we look at our plates, how can we add one green thing to our plates? Is it broccoli? Is it spinach? Is it what do you like? Like, let's add something, right? And then as we continue to slowly add some of those things, you just don't have room on your plate anymore for some of the other things. And so it gradually eases its way out. I think that about like once you start or stop having so much sugar in your body as well, and we just do the natural sugars, you stop craving it more and more. But again, it's not about going cold turkey. I mean, I believe that we, especially when we're in that trauma space, or even if we're 5 years past and we're not feeling necessarily in the depths of, I'm gonna fund a Kleenex. Um, I do believe that we still need to take things small. We need habits are not developed overnight. And I know that whole like 21 days to develop a habit is BS, right?
Debunked.
It's not defunct. And I mean, it seriously might take us 2 years because what we're really doing is building new neural pathways in our brain. And it takes a little while to build new neural pathways in our brains. So the mechanics, how do we take things one at a time? Everybody's going to start someplace different. So one of the things I'll do with women is we do get to meet one-on-one in the program. So it's taking a look at what does your diet, what does your nutrition look like right now? Like full stop, what does it look like? Full transparency, what does it look like? Okay, this is where we're at. This is where we want to get to. We don't jump from here to here, right? You don't all of a sudden jump from you're shopping in the middle of the grocery store and you're getting all of the junk food to I want you to shop on the periphery of the grocery store because that's where actually the food is. But so we take it one step at a time. So it
Beautiful.
it really is. And again, we meet one-on-one and we meet in a group, but in the group even we're all at different places. We're all at different places and it's not about perfection. I have chocolate every day, so it's still fine. It's still okay. And you have to
It's
pick what works
nurturing.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that you said that. It's like we just have one thing, because that really is how what you said, neural pathways was another one. For those of you, maybe you've not heard of that term before, but all neural pathways is if you're a hiker and you're going into the woods and you don't see a path and you start walking and you tamp down the grass that's there, and then you had to walk back out and you walk that same pathway. As you're patting that grass down, you're starting to create a pathway. And eventually, if you walk that same path often enough, you'll see the dirt, you'll see the bare ground, and it's permanent. And that trail will not go away because you've done it so many times. Well, the same process works in the brain. As we start adding that green item to our lunch or to our dinner every single day, we don't have to think about it anymore. it's the first thing that will go on the plate because now it's a habit, but that takes time to build. And we don't do it overnight. We don't just say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to start eating this way because we haven't created that pathway. And it's really easy for the grass to pop back up if you only do it once. And if you only do it for a short period of time, it doesn't actually build the habit. So you mentioned
Love that
dopamine.
analogy. I am 100% stealing that analogy. I love that
Do it.
analogy.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure I heard it, stole it from somebody else because there's no new ideas in the world. But
Right.
it's funny how things land for you. Like I see in pictures. So when I hear, I oftentimes like doing phone calls versus Zoom because I can close my eyes and I can listen to the person and I get my own images of what those things are. So I'm very much an auditory person and I need stories to understand. And so we want to talk to those folks who can visually see and who can hear. But one of the words that popped out when you mentioned the dopamine hit, that the salt, fat, sugar is causing us to have that dopamine hit. But the other place that we get dopamine is back to the body, to moving. Like if you want a dopamine hit, get down and do 20 push-ups right now. You are going to have dopamine pumping through your body. You're going to lift your spirit, raise your joy, just by moving your body, or run in place for 4 minutes. Set the clock, watch, set the timer on your watch or set the timer on your phone and start to run in place for 2, 3, 4 minutes. Those types of physical movements can also cause dopamine. So I'm not saying you can't eat the food, but if you're craving the food and you want a dopamine hit, do the physical piece of it. And if you still need it, go get the chocolate. But if you don't need it, maybe you've
Right.
just passed it by. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do we address these, dopamine and even another one, serotonin, melatonin?
Yeah.
People don't sleep when they're going through some of these things. When you have these big things happening, how do we address those issues of getting up and getting enough sleep and actually being productive and continuing to make money? Let's get into mindset and emotion a little bit.
Sure. Well, so a couple of things just came up when you said that. So some of the things specifically that we work on in the program. So one about the dopamine hit. So when you say that you're not, okay, let's say we'll do nutrition first. So if we are deciding we're not going to get that dopamine hit from potato chips, right? We're going to get it from someplace else. We need to be really practical and figure out what are those things that, or where else can we get them? So one of the things that I do have women do, so this is a tip that everybody can do, is I want them to write out 5 things that they can do in under 5 minutes that will also give them a dopamine hit. So what is it that they like to do? Do they like to dance? Do they like to color? Do they like to move their bodies? Do they want to meditate? Do they want to I don't know, take a quick bath or whatever that meant, a shower? So you write those 5 things down and you put it on a sticky note and you put it on your refrigerator or you put it on your pantry door. Can't keep it there forever because we're going to, forget, we're just going to pass it by. But it allows you that pause to say, do I really want the ice cream or do I just need to call my mom? Or do I need to call a friend? Or do I need to call her? Or do I need to turn on Bon Jovi? Whatever. What is that? So again, it's about the small practicing. It's about the small steps into the forest, right? It's about trampling that grass one little step at a time. So that's one of the things that I do for that. The other thing you said about sleep. So we have a whole chapter, I call them, on sleep hygiene. Again, I'm not a sleep expert, but sleep is almost the number one thing that we need to do. And you're right, we're not sleeping, and we're not sleeping maybe because of the trauma. We're also maybe not sleeping because we're Gen X and we're in perimenopause and we just don't sleep. I mean, let's like elephant in the room, right? That is another big thing that we're going through this. Plus, we're going through this other amazing, let's use good word choices, amazing change, but that can cause us to get up at 2 a.m. in the morning, and not be able to sleep for an hour, right? So how do we couple easy things about sleep hygiene? And I should say simple. They're not necessarily easy. Simple is that sleep starts. Getting a good night's sleep starts that night before, right? So we need to make sure that we are going to bed at a good time, right? So if we know we want 8 hours of sleep, somebody said this to me the other day. If we know we want 8 hours of sleep, you don't go to bed and let's say your alarm rings at 6, you don't go to bed at 10 because that's 8 hours. You need to go to bed at 9:30, right? Like you need to get into bed at 9:30 because you're not going to like fall asleep right away. That also means what does that routine look like before that? Maybe your routine starts at 8 o'clock, that you're making sure that the house is clean, whatever your thing is, that you are brushing your teeth, you're, reading a book, you're doing, you're taking off your makeup, you're doing all those things. You need to time out all those things. And then you need to say, my nighttime alarm rings at 8 o'clock, because then I need to start to do all of these things so that I'm in bed at 9:30. I'm going to fall asleep by 10 and then hopefully sleep till 6. So we need to make sure that we're, doing the whole sleep hygiene. The one thing, and I should ask you about this, have you used the blue light blockers?
Yeah, I do. I have them everywhere. I have a
Okay. I was just talking to my sister about that. Yeah. Okay. And I need to get some, because that's the next thing on my list. I'm like, because I'm super bad about my phone, and I'm really trying. So this is my, like, we're not perfect, and we're all on this journey together. And my thing is that, I'm looking at my phone. I don't have social media on my phone anymore, but, I'm looking at my schedule, or I'm texting people, or I'm doing something. So it's like, I at least need to get those blue light blockers.
phone. So I have them by my bed. I have them on my desk. I have them, on the coffee table. Every place that I might be on a phone or in front of a screen, they're there. But I don't use them when I do Zoom calls because they create glare. People can't see me and all of that. But you can also turn it on your phone and your computer. There's a nighttime setting, and it will actually drop kind of a pinkish reddish color over the phone and over the computer screen. So if I'm working past when the sun goes down, mine comes on automatically on my computer. All of a sudden it just shifts and it blocks it. It's a blue blocker already built into both your devices, or all of your devices, your iPad, your notebook, or your Kindles, and all of those things have them. So go into your settings and find nighttime settings, and you'll
Who
find that blue blocker in
knew?
there. Yeah.
Well, you knew, I didn't. So ding, ding, I just learned
But maybe
something.
other folks don't. So thanks for bringing
Yeah.
that one up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
we can
think
do
the
to help
other thing
improve
about,
sleep.
oh, sorry. I think the other thing about sleep that I was just going to say is, and this to me, and again, I know the science, but I'm still amazed when it happens. I was working with this woman, and like super overwhelmed, where just like I'm just couldn't figure out where to start. I just said, okay, we're just going to start with sleep, because she was one of those people that would stay up till 2 a.m. in the morning reading, doing something enjoyable. But she's like, my kids, she had teenagers, and I'm like, they can get themselves to bed. But, you know, finally time in the house that she had to herself. So she would read, and she would just get into these books, read till 2 o'clock in the morning. Alarm would ring at 6. I'm like, okay, you need to get a little more sleep. We just worked on, and we 15 minutes at a time. We didn't say all of a sudden you were staying up till 2, you have to go to bed at 10. It was 15 minutes earlier every week. We just kept working on it. Lisa, she dropped 20 pounds, and that is the only thing she changed.
Yeah.
The
People
only
don't
thing she
get how
changed
important sleep
was her
is. Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah.
And I know the science, and I'm still amazed at how that works. So get your sleep. It is just, and if you have more sleep, it's easier to make better choices. And so everything gets easier. But even outside of the mental piece of it, just the restorative things that your body is doing during sleep. She lost 20 pounds just by sleeping. I mean,
Yeah.
she wasn't doing the push-ups and anything else. She was just sleeping. So,
Yeah.
it works.
I had two people who had issues. They got tested for sleep apnea, ended up being on the CPAPs. Both lost significant, more than 15 pounds. One was in excess of 20 pounds just by getting sleep. And, when you start to lose that weight, eventually you can wean yourself off of those devices, because a lot of the weight in the neck and the weight in the upper body is part of what's causing the sleep problem. So it can be a short-term solution for folks. I know some folks, so I don't want to have that. I don't want to sleep with that. And it's like, yes, but it helps you to sleep. And if you sleep, then all of these other benefits can come from it. So I think a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. And it's just a matter of kind of jumping in with somebody who can walk this journey with you, where you have a safe place to say, here's what's going on. I'm way too emotional, or I'm not sleeping, or, all I'm choosing is potato chips and chocolate. Being able to say that out loud, and to somebody who has resources, who maybe has walked that path before, who can help you decipher some of this stuff. Those are the folks that both Rachel and I have been working with for, many, many years at this point. If you're that person and you need some help, reach out. Don't struggle in silence, because there's no benefit to that. it's a rippled effect that goes out to the world that you live in, that you are struggling in silence and you don't have joy and you don't have happiness. So you're entitled to that. It's your God-given right to have all of those things in your world, and you can do that by getting a little bit of help, and there are safe spaces to ask for that help. So please do ask. Rachel, do you have any final advice for our Gen X women who might be feeling overwhelmed by the prospect of starting over, whatever that looks like for them, whether it's divorce or being a widower, whatever it looks like? But getting started, and maybe it's just getting started. You found yourself in a rut, in a place that you're not happy, but you're still in a marriage, and you can still save that marriage. But final advice for these Gen X women who may not be exactly where they want to be at this point in life.
I would say act. Take it from Nike, just do it. And because emotion follows action. So
Yeah.
emotion follows action. You have to act. Just do something. So, and the doing something could be pausing. So the doing something could be meditating. The doing something could be getting out for a walk, a 10-minute walk. The doing something could be adding a piece of broccoli to your plate, adding something green. Do something. Emotion follows action, and those actions then start to build on each other. And then all of a sudden, it's 6 months, it's a year, it's 2 years down the road, and you are just a different person with so much joy, and you are living the life that God, the universe, whatever you call that they intended for you, because you were given this amazing life on earth to do something great. And all of my hope is that, and I believe the reason that I'm here is really just to give people the resources to find or refine their joy so they can go out and live amazing lives.
Beautiful. Where do folks find you? If people want to get in touch with you, where do they find you?
Yeah, the best place is LinkedIn. So Rachel Bentz on LinkedIn. I also am, my website is enjoymyeveryday.com. So those are the only two places I am right now. I'm giving myself a little mental break from Facebook and Instagram. But so LinkedIn and my website. You can also email me, rachel@enjoymyeveryday.com.
Beautiful. I love all of those. If you are a woman who has looked in the mirror and said, I don't know who you are, I don't recognize you, your stress level is off the charts, your weight isn't exactly where you want it to be, and you want to get your mojo back, reach out to Rachel. I can highly recommend her. All right, folks, that's it for us today. If you need some help as an entrepreneur and you want to expand your brand online with social media, I'm here to help you with that. Please reach out. You can find me at lisamosby.com, book 30 minutes, and we'll talk about your business and what the next step is for you to soar in your income producing opportunities. All right, folks, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for coming back. Hey, and by the way, I'm going to talk to Rachel again next month because this was so much fun. We're going to go in a different direction. I think we might talk money, but I'm not sure. I want you to look out for it, keep an eye out, and come on back when I talk to Rachel again. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.